Welcome to the Higher Power Podcast, presented by Higher Power Sports PT, the show dedicated to helping active individuals like you unlock your full potential through expert insights on injury prevention, performance enhancement, and recovery. Kurt Kessler is a board-certified specialist in sports physical therapy and an athletic trainer. In each episode, he and his guests bring you the latest evidence-based strategies to help you move better, feel stronger, and stay injury-free. Let's learn together.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Powered Podcast. Today is a special episode for me. I have invited Dr. Ray Gorman on. Ray is a PT. He has a background in strength and conditioning. He is a business coach and mentor for physios and the owner of Engage Movement. Ray is the first business coach that I've ever had, and he has made a tremendous impact on not just my business and getting it started, but impact on me personally. And I wanted to invite him on to discuss personal growth and development. So Ray, thanks for giving me some of your time as the clock is ticking for baby girl Gorman to arrive.
Yes, sir. Due yesterday. So this is the first piece of content post due date, even though she's not here yet.
Yeah. Personal growth and development has always been something important to me. And I've had mentors in many forms.
Yeah.
My dad was a big one for me growing up. And then I had some coaches in sports and professors at various stages of education. And then doing a sports residency professionally gave me mentorship each week. So I've always had somebody helping to guide me either in life or in sports or profession, whatever. And then after that is when I started my own business and I kind of found you, and you have filled that role for me most recently. So can you start by sharing a little bit about your background personally and professionally and where your growth mindset began?
Yeah. So, I think growing up, like entrepreneurship was always something that I kind of experienced and witnessed. My dad owned a bar in Las Vegas, Nevada in the 90s. And it was like one of the Playboy top 100 college bars in the nation. Like it was a pretty big deal. And so I kind of saw entrepreneurship, as part of our life, but I also saw it as something that caused a rift between my parents. It was something that ultimately led to their divorce, was the strain that the business kind of put on them. So, I think a lot of people can take that story and run with it one way or another. And for me, I'm kind of always the person where I'm like, well, what can I do to have the opposite happen? Right. I played my initial career very, very safe, like extremely safe. I'm somebody that has become more risk tolerant, but I was definitely risk adverse. And I think that helps me with coaching people in business is how do I get them to stretch that limit? But, I went to PT school. I didn't leave Nevada for college. I went up to, from Vegas, I went up to Reno, back to Las Vegas for PT school. I had some opportunities to take a job in California, and I decided to actually go back to Reno, Nevada and take a job at a clinic that I was a PT tech at in undergrad. And the rationale for that for me was, well, you already know the people, you already know the system. It'll be a good job to kind of get your feet wet. And I've been lucky in that, I've never had a bad job. I've just always had jobs that never gave me everything I needed. Right. So I never had a job that had we had bouts of crazy volume, but I never had a job where I saw 30 clients in a day, right? I'd see mid 20s in a 10-hour day, but that was kind of from time to time, not always. And so I took that first job and I really felt just kind of professionally unfulfilled, very quickly. I almost felt like I enjoyed being a PT tech more than I enjoyed being a PT. because I felt like I was able to do a lot of the fun stuff with my patients, and exercise with them and do things with them. And when you're a PT, it's kind of like, do I do all the fun stuff or do I go home on time? Do I get my paperwork done so I can go home on time? And after a couple days of staying late, you're like, no, I go home on time. And, that job was great, but I was only making like 60 grand a year. And I just found it kind of crazy that as a doctorate level profession, months into my career, I was like, do I need to get a second job? Right. And so I did that. I got a second job at a skilled nursing home, and it was good money, but not the setting I wanted to be in. And then I kind of was like, you know what? Maybe I'll just start my own business. Like maybe I will, instead of making $50 an hour at a nursing home, I'll charge $60 an hour in the gym. And luckily I got some good advice, and I ended up charging $90 an hour to start. But that was kind of like the first step into entrepreneurship. I then went on to, leave that job. I worked in sports medicine, which was really cool, but it was probably like 10% sports medicine, 90% general outpatient ortho. It was higher volume, and it just like, again, I thought it would scratch the itch, and I kept searching for like that perfect situation. And then you start to realize that it doesn't really exist, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You said a couple really important things, and I'm going to go, I don't want to say off topic, but
Yeah.
you started right off the bat by talking about the strain that your dad's business put on your parents' marriage. And so now I've been in business for just over a year, and I wouldn't say that my marriage has been strained, because especially when it first started, when the business first started, my wife was like 1000% for it, because she saw how I was coming home every day from my previous job in PT. But then you start like trying to build it, and it takes time and it takes effort, and it's really easy to see how, I get wrapped up in it quite a bit. I think about it all day long, mostly because I enjoy thinking about these things.
Yeah.
But, I'm a year and a couple months in, and now I'm starting to realize, okay, I've been, trying to push this forward at a pace that's maybe a little bit unrealistic, or my expectations were a little bit unrealistic for the time that I was able to devote to it. And I have had to kind of swing back the other way in order to keep the rest of my life prioritized appropriately for what we want to do together and what we want to do as a family. And when you said that, it just really stood out to me, because unless you are a business owner, like there's no possible way to understand what it feels like and what goes into it. And I know before I started, like I had no clue. Like people say, oh, like I make my own schedule, or you see that this business owner like at all their kids' games because they have that flexibility. But what people don't see is all the work that it takes to get to that point. And so I thought that was really, really important. And you noticed that at a young age, and you said that you wanted to make sure that situation didn't happen in your life. So would you mind just like sharing a little bit about your mindset on how you put parameters up so that it doesn't happen to you?
So I think that what's really important here is this is where business type and business model really come into play. So I don't know that I realized this up until the point of this conversation, but like I've like never wanted to own a restaurant. I've never wanted to own a bar, And so I think that the disconnect that I could make was, well, just because, my dad had that business and that business didn't work out, it's like my business isn't that, right? Now, the other thing that I realized early on was I didn't really want a business that had a bunch of overhead, because again, I saw the strain on, like you got to make rent, you got to make payroll, you got to have inventory. And so as I started to build my PT business, my clinic, it was like I was always thinking about how can I create a model that has really high upside with really low overhead? And so for me, that was like a blended practice model, right? It was like, how do I create a business model that generates more revenue per provider than a traditional one? I have always been somebody that has not done well following the rules. Like that is just something, like when I see inefficiencies, that is always something that I am kind of looking into, is like, how do I make this process more efficient? How do I change this process? So when I talk to people that are strapped by their business model, right? They are time constrained by their business model. The number one thing that we need to get them to buy into is, how do I get them to see a world where they can do things differently and different equals better, right? If we keep doing the same thing, we're going to keep getting the same outcome. So there was a period of my life where I worked 12 plus hour days. I worked weekends. There was a time where I was traveling and doing seminars. Now, keep in mind, I was either dating or engaged at that time. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. And I would work, 21, 28 days in a row because I would be teaching on those weekends. But I would not do that right now. Like, I would not do that at this phase of my life. And so the concept that everybody needs to become familiar with when it comes to their business is that, like, business is going to have trade-offs. Sometimes you're going to sacrifice money. Sometimes you're going to sacrifice time with your significant other. Sometimes like, this one sucks. I hope you never do this. Sometimes you're going to sacrifice personal health. And what you have, like, you almost have to do those things to realize that you never want to do them again. And so what I want to make sure that I'm being clear of here is, I'm not advocating that you do any of those things. What I am telling you is that sometimes you need to learn the lesson of what you are sacrificing and what it's costing you, so that you can regain control. So I think that was kind of a big piece for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the way that you like outline each of those avenues is so helpful for me, and I'm sure for anybody listening, because yes, one thing I've really learned from you is that, like, life and decisions is just a big game of trade-offs. Like,
Yeah.
what pros or what negatives are you willing to accept with the pros, and just making sure that one aligns with what you want to do or how you want to practice or how you want your business to run. And just like, yes, knowing, maybe having some of those experiences to draw back on, like, okay, this is not what I want, so let me shift gears. Maybe I'll make this other trade-off so that I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And that's super helpful. The one big question I have for you, like, you have this consistent push things forward, tinker with things, improve efficiency, but like, what is it that drives you to keep pushing yourself forward? What is it that drives you to continue to seek mentorship? What is it that drives you to keep working to try to be your best?
Yeah, I think like, it's just that constant exploration of, like, what is possible. Like, people say, like, Ray, what's your 10-year plan? And I'm like, I have no clue, because I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years that may steer me in a different direction. So, like, I don't generally think like that. So for me, it's like, the thing that I'm trying to figure out right now, and I think that this has always been something that I've noticed a constant theme in my businesses, because my business now is set up very similarly to my PT business, my cash-based business. I am constantly trying to figure out, how do I do more but with less? Like, how do I make more money in less time without sacrificing any client quality outcomes? And so I feel like that curiosity in my business is something that drives me to just be like, okay, well, like, I did a video recently of all these changes that I made in my business as I get closer to being a dad. And one of them was, I don't want to do sales calls. right? And so what that has allowed me to do is it's allowed me to make just as much money per month, but it's given me back about 10 hours per month. So
Huge.
that's a massive win for me, where it's like the goal isn't always revenue growth. Sometimes the goal is, how do I make the same amount of money in less time? And so I think the thing that constantly drives me is people saying like, this is how you scale a business. This is how you scale a business. This is how you scale a business. And I'm like, why is nobody talking about how to scale a business differently? And so
Right.
that's like the thing that I like to show people.
Well, and that's what's different, and that's what appealed to me the most
Mm-hmm.
about your business and your coaching and your, the business model that you teach, is because it is different. Like,
Yeah.
the biggest reason I never ever wanted to be a business owner, never wanted to have my own PT clinic, and the biggest thing was because I didn't want to manage other people. Like,
Yeah.
I probably have a skill set to do that, but I just don't have the interest in doing that. And
Totally.
so I always wanted to build my own culture in whatever space I was in. But with that just came a lot of different variables and different things to manage. And that's just not where I wanted to spend my time. So when I heard someone, we'll call it scaling backwards or whatever, like
Sure.
scaling, but with not the intent of necessarily gross revenue growth, but to get your time back. Because what I know about you is you value time as much as, or more than anybody else. Time is like the biggest thing that I'm selfish with, because it's something that
Mm-hmm.
feels scarce, something that we can't get back. And so that was what really drew me to you and your approach, and trying to learn how to implement that for myself. And yeah, it's definitely not easy, but with the way that you outline it, the way that you cultivate the people that work with you, it makes it possible. It makes it attainable. And I think that was one thing that I really learned from you.
I had a really interesting experience this weekend in regards to time, and just something that I've always known. And like, again, I think that there's a movie about this with Justin Timberlake, where like time is literally like the currency, right?
Mm,
But I got a massage this weekend, and it was supposed to be a 90-minute massage, and 60 minutes in, like, she stops giving me a massage, and I'm like, okay, what is going on here, right? So in the midst of this, like, we have a conversation, and I was like, hey, this was supposed to be 90 minutes. She's like, oh my God, I'm sorry. And she said, where do you want the remaining time spent? And I was like, time is such a currency that we are just not valuing high enough. And so like, for traditional businesses or traditional mindset of people, since we're talking about like personal growth here, let's just not talk about the business, right? Let's talk about the mindset around trading time for money.
yeah.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with the concept of trading time for money. The problem that most people have is what we think our time is worth is way lower than what it really is. And so, like, in my business, there are plenty of things that I do where I trade time, where I trade time for money, right? But it's also that, like, I'm constantly trying to figure out, how do I make my effective hourly rate? How do I make my time more valuable per interaction spent? And so I think when we start to look at it like, time really is this currency. So like, anyone out there who is listening and is like, oh, well, it feels weird spending, taking money from people. It feels weird taking money from people. You aren't taking money from people. You are trading currencies. And so like, for those of you, let's use like the cash-based PT business, right? You are trading your skill set, which maybe is delivered in units of time. Hopefully, if you have a model like we've helped you implement, you have some way to, not just be tied to time. And the only equalizer that we have to that is money, because money is the one thing that we've all agreed on, where it's like a dollar is worth a dollar. And we won't get into the political side of the decreasing value of the dollar, right? But like, if I say, hey, Kurt, this $20 bill is worth $20, and you say, no, it's worth 18, like that's just not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
That $20 bill is worth $20. So money just becomes the great equalizer. And so one of the things that a lot of people need to do from a growth perspective when they step into entrepreneurship is they need to really evaluate their relationship and their views and their beliefs around money. Like they need to figure out, what is it about money that maybe turns me off? What is it about money that has negative emotions tied to it? Negative feelings tied to it? Like if there's one thing that I work with a lot of new business owners on, it's usually the mindset and growth that needs to happen around money.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you what common, I don't want to say problem, but what common themes do you see come up with the people that you're coaching?
Yeah.
So and you went right into that. So what is your strategy on helping them? Like what have you seen, whether belief wise or, I'm sure you've seen a lot of different ways this manifests, but like how do you help someone through that?
So most people are just scared of doing things that they haven't done before.
Yeah.
They're scared of rejection. They're scared of putting themselves out there. I can't remember if I said this in a podcast or on a Instagram or YouTube or something, but entrepreneurship is the first time you're putting yourself out there publicly to fail.
Mm-hmm.
It is the first time that you're saying, hey, everybody look at me. I have this business. And if I stop talking about it, you probably know it didn't go well.
Yeah.
So the number one thing that we kind of have to recondition people to is, their mindset around failure, their mindset around risk, their mindset around rejection. And so I talk about my failures a lot because most of the stuff that I teach in, our offer in my mentorship is mostly about things that I've failed at that created a gap for me to then invest in a skill to not fail as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, so many people are just scared to learn a new skill when they are so capable of it. Like if you went to PT school, you are capable of learning so many skills, but they're just not skills that you're comfortable learning, like marketing, networking, sales, having conversations about, money with people that you maybe don't really know, overcoming objections. All of those things are skills. And so I recognized very early, even in my business, that I was like, man, at this phase, like personality selling, like is just not going to work because not enough people know who I am and what I do. Now, later on, once my messaging is dialed in, my marketing is dialed in, I can pull back on the sales process. But it was like one of the scariest things I did in the entrepreneurial journey is I invested like $9,000 into sales coaching. And it probably ended up being more than that because I did some continuation work. But literally, like, forget about the money. The scariest thing was like, if I want to get good at this, I need to role play in front of, 30 to 50 people. And that is really intimidating.
Yeah.
And so the thing that we are trying to get people to do in our mentorship is we're just trying to get them to put themselves in situations that most people wouldn't. We're trying to get them to walk into a gym where they know nobody and say, hey, I'm a physical therapist, right? That's like maybe phase one. We're trying to get them to offer help to somebody where there isn't a third party payer. There isn't insurance making the payment, right? It's way different when you ask somebody for money.
Yeah.
So you're really just trying to get people to do things that they normally wouldn't do because that is the cost of admission into entrepreneurship.
You said so many good things there. And the quote about failure, you said that on the Rehab with Ronnie podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm glad you remember. I was like, I know I said this somewhere.
Yeah. I don't know what that says about me, that I just consume everything that you put out there or what, but no, but it's so true. And if anybody would ask me, probably from age 20 to 33, so that takes me up to about last year,
Hmm.
I would have said my biggest fear is the fear of failure.
Hmm.
And one way that you have helped me overcome that is thinking about, okay, so the cost of being in this situation is whatever. So let's go back to my previous PT job. The cost of being in that position is you're spending 45 hours a week working, you're not seeing your kids, whatever, versus the risk that comes with starting your own business. Like, sure, there is some risk, but like, again, it goes back to trading
Yeah.
things, or the trade off. And so, is it riskier to stay in the same position that you know you don't like, even though it gives you a consistent paycheck? Or is the risk greater to try to build something that is going to fulfill you professionally or whatever way internally, and maybe it doesn't work out?
Yeah.
So, that was one big thing that I learned from you. I want to dive a little bit deeper into just like some of the mindset stuff or belief stuff. Doesn't necessarily have to be around money or whatever, but just helping people, whether it's entrepreneurs, PTs, or just anybody listening to this, like how to combat those limiting beliefs.
Mm,
Because I let that hold me back from a million things up
yeah.
until about a year or so ago. And I'll take it even down to like this really tiny level, a little story. This past weekend, I was working at a football game. It was a home football game. So one of the doctors associated with our team was there. And I had a question about a certain injury that I just was curious about. I wanted to learn more about. And it's like the third quarter, and I still haven't asked yet. It was like the end of the third quarter, and in the back of my mind, I was like, if he walks out of here, like I lose the opportunity to better myself and to learn something new.
Yeah.
And so it's the middle of the fourth quarter. I still haven't asked yet. I think there's 2 minutes left in the game. I was like, gosh darn it, if you don't ask this question, like just get over it.
Yeah.
What is holding me back from asking a question? And so then I just went up to him. I just asked the question, got the answer, found a new perspective, and I got the result that I wanted. And the only thing that was holding me back from learning or getting whatever result was just me like telling myself, like I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to ask a question. Like it sounds so silly because it's
Hmm.
so tiny. But when you get into some of these bigger issues or bigger problems or bigger decisions, like that can really hold somebody back from pursuing their dream or pursuing what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
So, what thoughts do you have on like helping people that are holding themselves back with limiting beliefs?
Yeah. The first thing that you need to do is you need to cultivate awareness around these beliefs. And this is like the hardest part for people, because it requires kind of turning your reality upside down, right? So I'll use myself as an example. The last role that I was in, I was kind of working in operations, product development, and I had gone through this phase where, the deal structure that I had in place, I had made a lot of money in this role. A lot of money for that period of my life. And the story that I was telling myself for a really long time was that if I leave, I don't know that I'll be able to make this much money on my own. And that was completely a limiting belief, right? And unfortunately, like that decision to leave had to be made for me. It wasn't made by me, right? So the longer that I've kind of gone through life, the more that I am just constantly questioning certain things. And one of my most recent mentors, he had said, you have to become a belief collector. And what you're really looking for is you're looking for people who have, like, we don't want to live in a bubble, right? Like, we don't want to live in a bubble of everybody thinks the way that we think, everybody does things the way that we do, because we'll never grow that way. But like when he hears somebody else's belief and he's like, oh, that is a really powerful belief. I think I just believe that now. Like, I know that that sounds like kind of crazy, but that is kind of how it starts. And so I think what we need to start thinking about is like, is there a different perspective on this? Right? So let's just tie it back to business because that's an easy one to talk about.
Sure.
A lot of people's belief is that the way to scale a rehab-based business is with other PTs. But like my belief is that the way to scale a rehab-based business is with a different process. And so either one of those things could be seen as a limiting belief depending on which way you want to go, but your job is to figure out which way you align, which one you actually align with. And so I think that as time goes on, we also are proving ourselves out of these beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's saying like I'm not a social person. For example, that could be a limiting belief. Rather than I'm somebody who's developing the skill to socialize more. It just changes that mindset, right? I'm not a good salesperson. I'm somebody who's getting better at sales. Like, it's these little tweaks that we make for people that allow them to just see a different perspective where they're like, huh, I never thought of it like that. It alleviates a lot of the pressure. Because most of the things that are holding us back, like I think this is an Alex Sharfin quote. I've never been mentored by him, but I've listened to some of his stuff. He says, you don't yet have the business you want because you haven't become the person you need to be to run it. And so you can apply that to any facet in your life, right? You can apply that to your marriage. You can apply that to parenthood. You can apply that to your professional life. Like, doesn't have to be business. But like the moment that you decide you're going to be somebody else, or you're going to act, I don't even want to say be somebody else. You're going to pull out qualities that are already in you and just lean into those. Because most of these things, like all of the stuff that you and I have worked on together,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff was already in you, dude. Like, we just had to put you in situations where I could let Kurt prove it to himself. So I think that's a huge way. But the first thing is just like, you have to become aware of it, and then you have to actively work to change it. And the problem for a lot of people, man, is they are just not willing to do the work to change it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's super powerful. And I when you did that little activity with me, like what are the things you believe about yourself, or the things that you believe are holding you back? And I said, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you had me change it to I'm becoming. Mm-hmm. Personal story. My dad this past year just took a head coaching position for the varsity girls basketball program where I grew up. And we went back and forth about, should he take it, this, that, and the other thing. And we talked about like what was holding him back. What was he afraid of? And then we worked through that. And then he took the job. Mm-hmm. And I said to him, give me 3 things about yourself that would prevent you from being the best coach for this team. Mm-hmm. And so then he wrote them down. And it was like, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not whatever. And so then I said, okay, cross that out and write, I am becoming.
Yeah.
And he said to me how helpful that was for him. Yeah. So like a couple things. One, my dad is, close to 70 years old. So like there's no end to personal growth. There's the only end that there is when you put an end to it.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that, but then even just to show you the impact that you're having, you in California are working with someone in Pennsylvania for a certain amount of time. You influence my business so heavily, and then you're influencing my family. Yeah. And you had no plan of that, but that's just kind of the seeds and the fruit that bears when you work with someone and you teach us how to make ourselves better, because then we can help others in our lives to help make them better and help them pursue their goals. So I wanted to share that with you because it awesome, just came up.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it can be so easy. I'm going to go on a tangent here. It can be so easy for all of us to just get stuck in our own bubble. I am guilty of this every single day. I just think like the world revolves around me and what's important to me getting done that day and whatever else. But sometimes we need to take a step back and just kind of see the impact that we're making. And I think it's important. And I put myself out there to show others the impact that they're making on me and potentially other people in my life so that they have the ability to see the purpose and the impact that they're making. So I wanted to highlight that for you because working with you was one of the most valuable experiences that I've had in any way. I have broken down so many barriers of things that have held me back. And I won't sit here and say that I have even 2% of it figured out at this point, but I at least have the framework and know where to go forward, where without you, I'd be spinning in circles. And so for anybody listening here, Ray works with a very diverse population, people with very diverse skill sets and goals. And when I first started, I thought I was going to be like, I'm going to learn Ray's way. I'm going to become, like a little clone of Ray or whatever it is. And truthfully, it wouldn't be such a bad thing if that had happened because of how great and successful you are at what you do. But the biggest thing that you taught me, I will hang on to this for the rest of my life. I put a lot of pressure on myself to try to improve the business, to try to push it forward, to get it where I ultimately want it to go. And so many people that you work with are miserable in their job, miserable in the PT setting and seeking a quick escape and want to build it as fast as possible. And you give everybody the tools to do that. One of our monthly meetings, we were talking about my role as an athletic trainer, which initially I thought was just my escape route from traditional PT. I had that skill set. I worked in that setting before and I liked it. So I went back to that. And you said something to me. You said, do you like your job right now? Do you like what you're doing? I said, yeah, I love it. Then why are you trying to like you don't have to escape it.
Yeah.
You don't
just because everyone's telling you need to doesn't mean you have
yes.
to.
Because everybody else in our community was trying to build their business as quickly as possible because they were escaping something they didn't want. They were escaping a situation they didn't want to be in. And ever since that conversation, I've looked at my job differently. Not in the sense that taking urgency off of ultimately building the future that I want, but just to be content in a situation where I actually enjoy what I'm doing. And so I don't know how other people take that story and, apply it to their own lives, but that was the most powerful moment that I've had with you as a coach, when you helped me realize I don't have to do what everybody else is doing. I don't have to be on the same timeline as everybody else.
Yeah.
Because what I'm doing in this stage of my life is working.
Yeah.
It's working for what I enjoy on a daily basis. It's working for my family. And so now like every day is a balance between like, okay, push forward and be content with being content. And so that's, I'm sure if this were a coaching call, you would be able to steer me in a million different directions.
Well,
but yeah,
I think that's huge, right? Like you said something that I thought was interesting, that like, it wouldn't be so bad to be a clone of me unless you became a clone of me and absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
That would be really bad, right?
Yeah.
And so the problem that I've seen in the business consulting world is everybody is telling people what works to scale businesses, but not what works to start living a better life. And if you have to scale and build a business that you end up absolutely hating, despising, resenting, how do you think that's going to show up in your life? And so the reality of what we help people do is we just help people figure out like, what is the balance that you want? For some people, it's like for me, I didn't realize that the missing piece of Ray being happy was controlling my schedule 100%.
Yeah.
And so when I was, I talk about my last role, but my last role was very what I would call intrapreneurial. I was under the shell of another company, but I was really like had freedom, flexibility to do like 90% of the things I wanted to do initially. And then over time, that control started to shrink and shrink and shrink. But when I was relinquished from that, man, it was like a freaking weight was lifted off my shoulders because I did not have any external pressures of what I needed to do. And that was huge. And so, I recently was on a call with one of my other coaching clients, and we just had this massive breakthrough where like she's feeling all this pressure to build her business, but she's also contemplating having another kid. And it's like, what do you want to just alleviate the pressure on? Like, what if your business was just what it is right now? Does that work for your family and your household? If the answer is yes, then you don't need to scale your business. And I think that that is such an atypical business coach example.
Yeah.
But it's like, dude, like the point of business for everybody isn't to make this massive scalable, sellable thing.
Yeah.
For some people, it's like, I just want to do what I want, when I want. I want it to make this much money. I want it to take up this much time. And it's like, cool, then don't freak out when it doesn't grow. Like, you can either push and be unhappy, or you can settle in and be okay. And I just think more people need to hear that message. And there's going to be different seasons of life too, where different things pop up,
Yeah. For sure. For sure. And it's a very powerful realization, because for me right now, like having two very young kids that take up a lot of time, my wife is still involved in her profession and currently is like super busy on her end and being a full-time mother and all that stuff. And so for me, like, again, it goes back to that balance between like, I am so passionate about what I do. I'm so driven to be the best that I can be and be, successful by my standards. But if I were to push and push and push right now, like that would create a lot of other issues in this environment. And then would it even be worth it? So yes, it's a constant like tug of war, constant push and pull of like where you are now versus where you want to be. But the context of this season, does it work for you now? And like, if you decide to sit in something for a little bit, that doesn't mean that's where you'll be forever unless you let it become that. Yeah. If that makes sense. So yeah, even though I'm not like actively being coached by you in these last couple months, I still have these conversations with myself. Yeah. And then I'll have Ray answer. So like you're still alive in my brain and my soul here when it comes to personal growth and development. Last thing I want to hit on here is, now you've talked about a little bit of this, or you've mentioned some of these, but what are some of the biggest like mindset obstacles that you have had to overcome? Because it's so easy for, all of us in the community that have been coached by you or whatever to look at you and say, man, he's got it all figured out. He's got all these skills that I don't have and whatever. We don't see the last 17 years of your life where you've developed them. So like when you were 30 years old or 25 or whenever a lot of this journey started for you, what are some of the things that you have overcome to push yourself to be what you are now?
So I think the biggest one is just like reframing risk for myself is a huge one. I talk about these numbers to put it into context, not to brag about investing in coaching or anything like that. Yeah. But one of the things that I really never realized until just this last year is when people invest in themselves, myself included, there needs to be enough at risk financial resource wise for them to actually get the result. So I say that in the world of like, if your prices are too low, there's a chance that your clients don't get results because there's not enough at stake for them. So I had kind of 3 experiences that were really big for me, and they were all very scary. I had joined this coaching community. It was like $1,500 a month. And the goal was kind of all the things I did in my business, getting rid of sales calls, refining my offer, changing some things like that. And I did some of it, but I kept kind of telling myself like, oh, I'm not sure if this will work. Right. And after I went to a retreat put on by that mentor, he had invited me to work with him one-on-one. And it went from paying $1,500 a month to one-on-one coaching was $1,000 a week for 16 weeks. So it was like literally like 10x the cost.
Yeah.
And what I got done in the next 6 weeks was absolutely insane. And so the lesson that I learned there was like, wow, when there is something highly at stake, the way that Ray moves is drastically different, right?
Yeah.
So that coach kind of sunsetted his program. He's going on to do something different. So I invested in this like audio experience with another coach, and it was like $3,000, and it's all these audio experiences. And $3,000 is still a good chunk of money, but I found myself not as engaged.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself with not enough at risk to get a result. And so like the mindset that I had to overcome is if I'm going to be somebody that asks people to invest in themselves, I need to constantly be somebody who invests in myself. Mm-hmm. Like I need to constantly be doing that. And I need to understand that like Ray is the guarantee. Like I am going to get whatever it is. I have really good things from really bad mentors because I learned about the person that I didn't want to be by working with them. So that's kind of the mindset that I've had to take around risk and investing in myself and understanding that like I'm the kind of person who will figure out the lesson from this, the entire, regardless of the situation. The other thing too is I think that if I don't know something, like I can figure out how to find the knowledge to accumulate the skill. And so I think too many people out there are telling themselves the story that, well, I don't know how to do this, when it is something that is just so learnable. And so rather than continuing to tell yourself the story that you're the kind of person who, doesn't know how to do it, like become the kind of person that can figure out how to figure it out. Yeah. Like that is the one thing that'll keep people in business. We were talking about this before we hit record, but you were saying like, hey, I'm excited to see like how you enter into this, fatherhood era. One of the things that I just kind of know about myself is I know that I have the mentality that whatever it is, I will figure it out. That includes fatherhood, that includes business, that includes navigating the relationship with my wife, includes navigating the relationship with, our parents. I just know that I will figure it out. And that is such a powerful frame. And not enough people are exploring things because they're scared that they won't work. And what they don't realize is that it not working might be the piece of information that you need. Like I have worked with people where they have not gotten a result working with me, but they've said, this was the best thing ever. I needed to do this because what I realized was being an entrepreneur is not for me. And so thank you for all of your help. But like sometimes you just have to go through that phase where it's like, cool, you scratch the itch and you realize that like this wasn't for you. How powerful is that to get the mental load off your plate of like, should I start my business? Do I want to do this? I don't know, but you need to try. Sometimes you just need to scratch that itch.
Super cool. Super cool. Listen, I think this, I could talk to you for 24 hours straight because I'm always just like gaining something valuable. We can do a part two. Yeah.
We can do a part two.
Part two in fatherhood.
Yeah. Yeah.
But listen, the biggest thing I want you to know, I've said it a little bit already, how huge of an impact you've had on me. Completely immeasurable.
I appreciate it, man.
And I say immeasurable very specifically because there is just now, so much untapped potential that you have unlocked within me because you've helped me break down beliefs that were holding me back. You helped me believe in myself. You helped give me direction for my business and how to show up in the business, how to show up in life and household, and how to marry that all together. And so it is immeasurable, the impact that you have made on me, because you completely took the roof off of whatever potential I had for myself.
It's awesome, man. I appreciate you sharing that.
Whether that translates to dollars and cents, whether that translates to good patient outcomes, whether that translates to a healthy entrepreneurial marriage, like you just took the limits off.
Yeah.
And I will forever look at our time together before, again, leaving completely open-ended for the future.
Sure.
But the time we worked together in the past just completely changed the trajectory of what I'm trying to do and where I can take it. So just a million times thank you to you for pushing me, and not even just pushing me to be something, specific, pushing me to be your vision of what this should be. You pushed me to be my own vision. Yeah. And that was incredibly freeing, incredibly powerful to me. And it has stuck in me and has lived in me ever since. So just a million thank yous to you. If people are looking to connect with you, find you, learn more about you, where can they do that?
Yeah, man. Well, one, I just want to say thank you for saying that. It really means a lot. I think one of the special parts of coaching is being able to see the potential in people that they have difficulty seeing in themselves and helping them unlock that. So it really has been great working with you, man. If people want to reach out, best place to connect with me is on Instagram at Ray Gorman DPT. Feel free to shoot me a DM, ask me any questions. And then if you just want to kind of browse around, you can check me out on YouTube, or you can go to engagemovement.com.
Okay. I will also have some of that information in the show notes. That's going to do it for today's episode of the Higher Powered Podcast. I hope everybody was able to take as much from this as I was. Ray is just like an infinite well of positivity and helpfulness. So, yeah, just gosh, I don't want to press stop on recording here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you to everybody for listening. If you're looking for ways to connect with myself or Ray, you can find the information in the show notes. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Higher Powered Podcast, presented by Higher Powered Sports PT. We hope you gained valuable insights on how to stay strong, move better, and prevent injury, all backed by expert knowledge in sports physical therapy and athletic training. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us bring more evidence-based tips and strategies to active individuals just like you. For more resources or to connect with us, head over to hpsportspt.com. That's hpsportspt.com. Remember, you've got the power to perform at your best. Keep training smarter, recovering faster, and living stronger. Just a reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your health or treatment plan. Thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you next time on the Higher Powered Podcast.